We're going to spend some time now talking about competitive behaviors of high-performing sales guys who we spend time working with. There are some common traits competitively of the people we work with who really perform at high levels. And so what we'll try and do here is just share some of them. As always in sales, it's common sense stuff. There's no real rocket science here. The guys who are performing at high levels just simply seem to execute on a more consistent basis than many other people around the market. So there's some opportunity to perform at higher levels for everyone here. First thing we seem to see the high performers do is take competition very, very personally. And that really comes out in a very simple way. If I were to ask any of you who we deal with to name the competitors that you're dealing with in any particular account, you'd give me some company names. You'd talk about the competitors you play in your space or your sector. Here's what the high performers do differently. When I ask those guys who they're competing against, they tell me the name of the salesperson who sells for the competitor that they're having to sell against. And the reality is that we find ourselves selling against other people far more often than we find ourselves selling against the combined might of another company. Think about your own company for a second and compare yourself to the other sales guys in your company. You're not the same. Your company's given you some of the common training, but you all come from different backgrounds. You've all got different levels of experience, and as a result, you sell in different ways. Same's true of your competitors. If you don't know who the precise salesperson is you're competing against, it's pretty difficult to compete because you're making some very broad brush assumptions about the capability, the efforts, the strategy, and the direction that your competitors are taking. The more you can find out about the people that you're competing against, the higher the likelihood that you can actually create a competitive strategy to beat them based on the knowledge that you have about how that individual operates. We certainly see that behavior time and time again with the high performers that we work with. And it pays them back dividends because they're able to be very, very precise in terms of their strategy. The second thing we see with the guys that we work with is a high level of just what I call professional paranoia. I've talked about this before. People who tend to perform at the highest consistent levels in sales have a viewpoint that says that they want to question, pull apart, and play devil's advocate everything that they think they know about an account. And that includes competitors. You know, sometimes I get annoyed with salespeople because I'll ask them who the competition are in an account, and they'll tell me they don't have any. It's not true. You've always got someone who's a competitor, even if it's just an internal option that can help provide an alternative to what it is you're selling. The high-performing sales guys out there and the people that we've worked with in the past know this is true, stay professionally paranoid, and are constantly questioning everything about the account and the competition they're in. They're also questioning the motivation of the people they're working with in the account. They're asking themselves, why did that person just give me all that information? Why did that person seem so keenly interested in what I had to say? Was it because I was that good? Or was I being drawn in to give more information, but because perhaps they were already on the side of a competitor and were looking to trap us? Professional paranoia is a trait that we see right at the top of the sales profession. And if you can just convince yourself half the time to be as paranoid as some high performers, you'll be going some way to really understanding how to see what's going on in an account and work a strategy around it. Thinking about strategy, there's two sides to that. And again, as you look at people who are operating at the top of your sales organization, and as we see people in that same position, we see the traits come out. On the one hand, it's critical that you determine and decide and execute on a clear sales strategy to compete and to beat your competition. We talked before about what that can entail and why it's very rarely a very good idea just to compete head-to-head against your competitors. It's very rare you have the kind of overwhelming superiority that's necessary to win. And so more often we find people adopting flanking or divisional strategies in order to either change the criteria by which clients buy or chopping down deals, distilling the deals so that it really, really is focused on what they can win. And so competitively, we see that kind of strategic thought as very, very important. There's a flip side to it. Professionally paranoid people assume that what their competitors are doing are laying traps for them throughout the course of a sales cycle, constantly telling clients all the bad things about them in order that the client leads them into areas where they confuse themselves, run themselves into corners, do themselves a disservice, or other outcomes. Very rarely do we see the people we work with doing the same proactively. thinking about the uniques for their product, their solution, their company, thinking about the clear weaknesses, the clear points to focus on for their competitors, and laying out traps with the client in order to help the competition walk themselves into a corner they can't get out of. If we know your competitors always tend to say the same thing about you, if you know that they always tend to position their solution set in a particular way, then it makes sense to prepare the ground for them saying that, so that when they do say it, when they do it, when they do act in the way that you can predict, you can control the effect it has on the client, as opposed to allowing the client to feel how they need to feel about it. We're going to role play that in order to help you get a better idea of that, but the traits we see are a clear strategy on the part of the sales professionals that really operate at high levels, usually not a direct head-to-head strategy, almost always involving criteria change of some kind. And then a clear approach to laying out some traps and pitfalls for competitors so that they can preempt the activities of those competitors and really draw them into doing what they want to do. If you can mirror some of those behaviors and look at some of the stuff that we'll add to the resource kit to give you some of the questions you can ask, the ways you can position traps, the ways you can define your strategy, you'll be going a long way to really starting to enhance your behaviors in the field and drive high performance.